Karen Teeters bought her Corvette from Allen Merrill in Yukon last September. It was a demonstrator car, but it was under full GM warranty. It did have a bad paint job, but Karen was told that would be taken care of because it was under warranty. Then came the first paint job, but not the last.
Mad's not the word for it. I'm furious. I just feel like I'm shelling out close to $400 a month for a car that I don't get it. You know, I don't get to drive the car. Nothing at all.
Well, Karen thinks the paint wouldn't stick because the paint shop was trying to paint over the polymer protective coating in the car. She says the car's been sitting in the shop more than she's gotten to drive it. Well, meanwhile, Allen Merrill sold the dealership to Steve Bailey, who said his crew would give Karen a good paint job and get that car back to her as soon as possible. But because of paint problems and air conditioner problems, Karen does not want that car. She's only been able to drive it 4 or 5 months out of the year she's had it, and she wants to get rid of it. So I checked with General Motors to see if they could make an adjustment on the car for Karen after all her problems. The Chevrolet Zone office says they will stand behind the warranty on Karen's Corvette and see that she gets a good paint job on the car. However, it has to be handled at the dealer level, not the zone office level. In Karen's case, the dealer she bought the car from is out of business, but the zone office says if she wants an adjustment on the car for loss of use of it, a good trade-in on it, it still has to be handled by a local Chevy dealer. However, Federal Trade Commission laws concerning warranties state if a consumer product costing over $5 still contains a defect after a reasonable number of attempts to fix it, then the consumer must be allowed by the warrantor to choose between a refund or a replacement without charge. And Karen will be checking on the law with an attorney. Now, remember the case of Donna Green's barren lawn in Edmond? The Greens had hired W.G. Gray's new lawn service last summer to plant plugs of grass for their new home. It was guaranteed for a year, but nothing came up this spring except a few patches of grass and some weeds. She said Gray's would not answer her calls asking about their guarantee. Well, I tracked down Gray's new lawn service at their Southside headquarters finally, and they agreed to replant the lawn. Donna Green called us and said her lawn looks a little different today. Did you have to do a lot of extra work or pay anything else?
No, we didn't have to pay anything else, but, you know, we had to start the watering program all over and fertilize it a couple times, which all helped.
They give you a guarantee that this will come up next year?
Yes. Yes.
Well, we'll wait till next August, see if we hear from you again. In our first report, we learned that Greg and Brenda Knott had arranged to put the mobile home on land belonging to Greg's father. It would have cost them nothing. However, the FHA loan required them to own the land, so they couldn't qualify for the loan. But when they went back to the mobile home dealer, their salesman, Gerald Bolding, said all they'd have to do is mark off the section of land for the mobile home and get a contract for deed showing that Greg's father was transferring that portion of land to them. Greg and Brenda said they checked with a mortgage company financing his father's land and were told that surveys of that parcel of land and the paperwork would cost $600, something they could not afford. But their salesman insisted he would help them to survey the land themselves at no cost and would help them write a contract for deed, which they could file at the courthouse themselves. The Knotts said they were advised by a realtor not to do it that way. Well, by this time, 2.5 months had passed. Camelot Mobile Home said they could not refund the entire $1,900 the Knotts had paid down on the home because they felt the couple could have qualified for the FHA loan, and while they were waiting to find out, Camelot, they said, had to pay interest on the mobile home that they had taken off the lot, waiting for the Knotts to buy it. So they would refund all but $450. In Your Corner checked with the FHA about the loan procedure. Officials said an applicant for a loan must own the property, but getting a contract for deed would have been acceptable to get it into the Knott's name, they said. If the Knotts were told by the mortgage company they'd have to have an expensive land survey done and they couldn't afford that, perhaps the Knotts should have had a complete refund of down payment. One FHA official in Washington said if the mobile home the Knotts attempted to purchase was not a special order, just one off the lot, then the dealer should not have lost much money by taking it off the lot and holding it. Well, the Knotts said they were buying a mobile home left over from last year. The FHA has asked that the Knotts contact them and discuss the case in specifics. Updating another In Your Corner story, Lightyear Television Productions has made its first commercial. Lightyear, you may recall, was a local company that advertised in the classified ads for people to sign up for acting classes, to be trained for television commercials and other television productions. An actress, Pat Douglas, asked In Your Corner to look into Lightyear because they refused to tell her who their studio directors were or where their studio was located. But they insisted she send them $20 as a registration fee before being interviewed. In Your Corner visited Lightyear and learned they did not have a studio, nor could they show us credentials to teach acting classes as advertised. We found they did not have a state license to teach classes. Well, Lightyear's attorney says they may not need one, and that's being studied now. Lightyear ads promised those who signed up would be in a commercial. Well, they made one for a stain remover on a local television station, not in Lightyear's studio. The actors were trained by Lightyear and were not paid for their work. Lightyear's operator, Larry Limmerman, said it was their graduation project from their acting classes. He said he was not paid to make the commercial for the stain remover either. He said the only profit Lightyear will get is from any sales of the stain remover. He said they'll be selling the product from Lightyear Studio in Bethany. Ed Holmes showed me what's turning out to be a very expensive backyard fence. He and his wife did the job themselves. When Ed dug one fence post hole, he struck a telephone cable and severed it. Now, he reported that, they repaired it, and Ed paid for it, about $40. But he had one more such incident, and this one he didn't know about. Ed got a bill from OG&E for $246. They claimed he had cut an electric line when he dug a hole for a fence post. An OG&E worker said the line was 30 inches deep. Ed said he only dug 24 inches.
The digger here is 24 inches. I have it marked off, and you can see the tape, and that's the original tape. And from the bottom here to the top is exactly 24 inches, and I have a measuring tape, and we can check it. And I dug the post hole 24 inches down. My neighbor's fence is right behind here, and the motion that I was using was about like this, because that's how close I was. And so I was digging the post hole like this. So really I had no motion to really put any strength on, and if I did, I would have known, that there was a cable there or a root or something, So I would have had to dug around or, relocate the post hole.
Not only that, but Ed says he put his fence in 6 to 7 weeks before his neighbor's power went out. So how could he have cut the line? His neighbor Lula Castle confirmed that. What did you see that night?
Well, there were 2 workers, I believe, and Ed, and a friend of Ed's out there, and they were trying to find out why the next door neighbor's power went out, and were trying to tie it in with the fence.
Yeah. Well, was that fence up and finished before this occurred?
Oh, yes.
Ed told me he didn't understand how he could be responsible for the power line cut. Plus, the $246 bill came at a bad time. Ed is laid off from General Motors. He has 1 child and another one on the way. Well, I took the question to OG&E. How could Ed be responsible if his fence was finished several weeks before the power line was cut? I took the question to OG&E's district manager for the area, Bob Dykes.
It takes it some time to deteriorate, depending on the rains that you have, the moisture in the ground, and various other things.
Okay. Dyke said if the fence were built a month ago, Ed Holmes probably nicked the wire's insulation, and moisture could have leaked in and corroded the wires, causing it to sever. And he said the workmen did find the break in the line right under the concrete base of Ed's fence post. So Ed has to pay, they say. Dyke said if OG&E paid for all damaged lines, it would result in higher electric rates for everybody. However, he said Ed can contact OG&E's customer service and work out an easier payment plan. Lynn Bainter and his wife want their money back. They put a deposit down on some bedroom and dining room furniture at Wilke Bros, but Lynn claims he couldn't get credit financing for that furniture, and now he can't get his deposit back.
When I went there, the financing was supposed to be handled by him. He had a instant credit or instant financing and all that. We went ahead and picked out what we wanted. He wrote it down on his sheet, asked a bunch of questions concerning credit. I gave him 2 checks for $500 each, one to deposit after the credit was approved and one to deposit 2 weeks after. He went ahead and deposited it before the credit was approved, called me and told me that the credit could not be approved, that I'd have to get my own financing.
But when Lynn checked with another finance company, which does not want to be identified, he was refused a loan for furniture at Wilke Bros. I checked with that financing company, and they confirmed Lynn's story. Lynn was able to finance furniture at 2 other stores, so he went back to Wilke and asked for a refund.
So I told him that I'd just go ahead and pick up my money back. And he said he'd have to talk to his brother about that. And the next day I called him back to find out if he'd talked to his brother, and he said that his brother told him that I could pick out furniture, $500 worth of furniture. It would have been $1,000, but I stopped payment on the second check.
Well, In Your Corner put in a call to Wilke Bros several days ago to get their side of the story, but they never replied. So I stopped in for a visit today. I saw Kent Wilke looking out the front door, but by the time we entered the store, he was gone. I saw him at the door there.
Pardon me?
I just saw him at the door there. Did he leave?
I don't know. Is he back there?
No.
Might be down in the other store, 8 doors down.
You got another one down there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we checked 8 doors down at the Payless Discount Furniture Store. Well, we found nothing there except an unfinished game of solitaire. While returning to the main store, we saw Mr. Wilke enter the Payless store behind us. So we checked there again. But again, we found no one. Later by telephone, Wilke Bros manager Larry said he would not do an interview with us, but would say that the Bainter's $500 was not returned because they'd been approved for credit by 2 financing companies, Beneficial Finance and Blazer. With the Bainter's permission, In Your Corner checked with both those companies, and they say no such loan approval was ever made, and both said they have not been doing any business with Wilke Bros Furniture. You remember Zach and Bertina Walters? They're the family in Bethany who came home from vacation one day to find a couple thousand egrets and herons nesting in the trees of their backyard. Well, it was interesting to watch for the first few days because the Walters didn't know what they were in for throughout the entire summer. They had no idea of the noise, the stench, the bugs, the feathers, the dead birds they were in for. Worse yet, they had no idea that no one would help them. Government agency to government agency, and no help. All they heard was the birds are federally protected and you can't harm them. Well, the Walters said, what about us? Their 2 little girls couldn't even go out in the backyard. It was whitewashed with bird droppings. It hurts the lungs to breathe the tiny feathers that fill the air, not to mention the mess on the ground. In Your Corner checked with B.R. Peterson of the Wildlife Service to see if he could help.
What I'll try to do is get a hold of her and work with her this winter so we can take the nest down. And then be sure then we keep in touch with her so in the spring when the first birds show up that we can come in there with scaring devices and just make sure they don't nest there next year.
However, since that time, Bertina Walters checked back and says it looks like chances for help are dubious.
I spoke with him about 2 weeks ago, and he said that he didn't have the funds or the authority or the labor to come out and help us, but he suggested that we get some tall poles from the city of Bethany or the fire department and try and knock the nests out of the trees. Because even though we might deter the birds from settling in the spring with sound devices and that sort of thing, if you don't knock the nests down, it's just an open invitation, and they will come back regardless of the noise or whatever you might use.
How practical would that be? I mean, you've got what looks like
600 or
1,000.
700 nests. Considering we had about 1,200 birds, we're just estimating 600 or 700 nests. And you know, for the two of us to try and knock down all those nests with a tall pole, I just don't see how it can be done.
Well, Bertina says their hopes for a cleanup lie now with the Bethany Fire Department. They've asked for a truck to come out and help hose down the possibly 600 or 700 nests in the trees to make sure the birds don't come back next year. Bethany's fire chief is checking on getting clearance to do that. Otherwise, Bertina will have to go a much slower route, knocking them down by hand. In Your Corner has also put a call into the Area Boy Scouts Council to see if a troop would like to take on the project as a public service project or perhaps a wildlife learning experience. The Walters say it's been a real learning experience for them. They've learned much about federally protected birds, and they've learned even more about the lack of government protection or aid for a citizen underneath those birds. Well, winter isn't too far away now, and besides, the warranty is almost expired on the Zoellner's furnace, so they want any problems taken care of soon. Last October, Mrs. William Zoellner had a new Coleman furnace installed in her home and had problems with it during the winter. Now, the air conditioning has been working fine this summer, but she's still not happy with the heating, and here's why.
Well, the burner comes on. This is the heating part of it, and it stays on for a few minutes, and then it goes off. And a few seconds later, anywhere from 1 to 13 seconds later, the blower comes on. So I'm losing heat between the burner going off and the blower coming on.
She says then, after about 13 seconds of the blower, the burner comes back on, and both run for a while and shut off. Now, Mrs. Zoellner says the furnace heats all right, but it's inefficient and her bills are high. She says the burner should come on first and continue running with the blower. She says she bought the furnace from Boyd's and Moore, and they've been out several times.
But he said it can't be repaired to do anything other than it's doing. But the furnace I had before worked perfectly. So I'd either like them to remove this and refund my money or give me a new furnace.
In fact, she says a manufacturer's representative told her they would replace it, but it would be the last time. In Your Corner checked with a Coleman distributor, and a Mr. Greenwood confirmed that they would replace it. But both Coleman and the installer, Leroy Boyd, who sold her the furnace, say there is nothing wrong with it. Boyd says this problem occurred because of another problem. He said when the furnace blower shut off, it would come back on a few seconds later because other heat inside would rise up naturally and kick the blower back on for a few seconds, which he said many furnaces do. And he says there's nothing wrong with that, but Mrs. Zoellner didn't like it. So he adjusted that away, and the other problem cropped up.
But if you'd go ahead and adjust it where it'd go ahead and kick off and then come back on like it should, well then, you know, not have to adjust it so close. You know, we got to adjust it real close to get it like she wants it. Well, then it won't last very long. It'll only be back in the same boat like it is right now.
So in other words, that time delay between the time the burner shuts off and the blower comes on is that way now because you had to adjust it to keep the blower from coming on later.
Right. And so it's, you know, it's so close that it won't stay that way. You know, you can't keep it that way because it's too sensitive. But I could adjust it to where that fan come back on after it was off about a minute and maybe run a few seconds and kick back off. I can do it that way, and it'll be that, stay that way, but she don't like it that way.
But Boyd said he would replace it. However, the Coleman representative who promised the replacement has himself been replaced. His replacement says they'll try to honor the promise made earlier this summer to the Zoellners. So in Your Corner, we'll check back to see if the company carries out the promised replacement. In the meantime, if you have a problem, write In Your Corner, KTVY Box 14068, Oklahoma City 73113, or give us a call at 478-2291. I'm Brad Edwards, In Your Corner. John Lyons explained the furnace leaked exhaust fumes back into the fresh air blower because part of the pipes were not connected. It turned out that the furnace was a damaged one in a brand new mobile home. John's 2 children were overcome by carbon monoxide and had to be treated at the hospital. Fortunately, one of their cats named Tiger woke up John and his wife, who heard their 3-month-old son coughing. We checked with a manufacturer of Cameo mobile homes in Big Springs, Texas, which had its service manager flying up for a look. Gary Richardson told me he would have a new furnace installed, pay the bills for the Lyons family as well. In Your Corner checked back and saw that a new furnace had been installed and seems to be working safely. However, Mrs. Lyons and her son have both had lung congestion lately and have had to go back to the doctor. They do not know if the problems are related to the carbon monoxide fumes. Well, of course, the Lyons have a new furnace in their mobile home now, a safe furnace, hopefully. The only objection they have is that the Cameo Mobile Homes Company has only offered them a $130 settlement. That, in addition to paying their hospital bills, the Lyons feel the inconvenience of having to spend the night elsewhere, in addition to gasoline used and trips to the hospital and elsewhere, plus the mental trauma of having a close brush with death amount to somewhere over $200. Well, Mr. Lyons is consulting with an attorney over the issue at present, and we'll keep you informed of his progress. In Your Corner heard more about Bill's TV repair service following our story earlier this week with Belinda Paxton. Belinda took her set to Bill's in June. Well, it came back unrepaired. After 2 more trips and several months, it was still not repaired and had more damage to it than before it was taken in. All this despite Bill's advertisement in the Yellow Pages offering same-day service. John Farrell, who operates Bill's TV, refused to refund Belinda's $120. He refused to interview also with In Your Corner, but we photographed him on a service call at the home of a friend of Belinda Paxton. He said he would consider a refund then if Belinda would bring her set back to him.
Would you go down there if you were in my shoes? After waiting 11 weeks to have your set repaired, taking it back to the man 3 times, would you go back?
We heard from several others who also had problems with Bill's TV. In 2 cases, after customer sets were picked up by Farrell, they did not hear back from him.
After calling and finally calling you, I was able to get it back.
But it cost you some money.
$52.50.
What did he tell you?
Well, he told me before he brought it that it was not fixed, but he said, I want $52.50 in cash. And I said, well, why not a check? He said, you might cancel it before I could cash it.
So he charged you just to get your set back, and is it working?
No.
Well, Bertie took her set elsewhere for repairs. Belinda Paxton did also, and now is taking legal action to get her money back from John Farrell of Bill's TV service. Look at the mess in the backyard of Greg Sadler. It's a new home, in fact, a show home from the U.S. Homes Corporation. When Greg bought it, the home already had a sprinkler system installed, but there have been problems with it. This is the second time it's erupted. Now, water is flooding the yard, including part of the foundation on the back side of the house, which could cause it to settle and result in cracked walls somewhere down the road. Greg alleges that U.S. Homes told him the system would be covered by the home warranty. In fact, he says they fixed it once before, but they had refused this time.
I called and asked the warranty repair, which the home's covered under HAL warranty, and they informed me that, or the warranty man called back and said they were informed by the vice president of U.S. Home here in town, Lynn Pruitt, that they could not cover it anymore.
Okay, but they had originally told you otherwise, you say.
That's right. And he told me that there's nothing he could do about it. And so I said, well, I'll call and speak with the vice president. And the vice president, I've been calling him almost daily for a month or more, and he's just never returned any calls and refuses to. And I talked to him one night by calling him at his home, and at that point he told me that he would speak to the salesman, and he's never called me back since then.
What's the salesman say?
The salesman, Carol Young, told me originally that he definitely remembered telling us it's covered under the warranty, and then after talking with the vice president, he changed his opinion that maybe it's been a long time and he had forgot, and he really couldn't remember telling me that now.
I checked with a neighbor down the street who also bought a house with a sprinkler system from U.S. Homes. They, too, had repairs done by U.S. Homes. So I checked with company Vice President Lynn Pruitt to see why they had refused repairs this time. Pruitt declined an interview, but told In Your Corner that previous sprinkler repairs had been done in error and that the Homes warranty does not cover sprinkler systems. I reminded him that the home buyers claimed they were told by their salesman the systems would be covered and that a pattern of repairs had already been established by U.S. Homes. Well, in a couple of days, we learned that U.S. Homes decided to go ahead with repairs on Greg Sadler's system.